Hi, it's Modern Mongolia and I'm Donna. So I know it's been a while. I had to finish my studies and finally I'm so excited to be back doing the podcast. So in this episode I talked with Tim, who is teaching in English in the far west province of Mongolia, Ovs. So as we've talked, he's the one and only foreigner in the town of 30,000 people. So without further ado, please enjoy our conversation. So how was your day, Tim?
Oh, an interesting day.
Interesting.
Interesting that I work with a private school and the
Mm-hmm.
school has decided to continue classes.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still in school.
Oh, so it started in class. From when?
Well, the school is a regular K through 12, but we just have a first grade through
Uh-huh.
6, 7, 8, and 10. So we're a private school.
Uh-huh.
And the school asked the parents if they'd like to continue classes. So that's what we've done is we've continued classes. So no break for teachers yet.
Oh, I see. So you're quite busy now. I know. Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how is the weather in which city are you in? Ulaanbaatar?
I'm in the capital city, Ulaanbaatar, yes.
Uh-huh.
And the weather today was, it's warm outside. Not hot,
Mm-hmm.
but warm. I don't know
Yeah.
what the temperature is exactly.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Yes, it's finally actually getting warmer here also. It's been quite chill. Um,
yes. But it's nice to see that the flowers are now coming out on the
yeah,
trees.
exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. So usually we start the podcast asking from the guest how about listening about your story. How did you end up here in Mongolia? And for your case, how did you end up in OFS? Could you tell us about your story?
Sure. I'll try to make a long story as short as possible.
You can
So,
actually make it long. No problem. Yes.
okay. Well, long story short,
Okay.
um, uh, I'm from America,
Mm-hmm.
and my father was in the Peace Corps, and
Mm-hmm.
the Peace Corps is a volunteer group of folks from America who are trained and then go out to other countries to help with the developing process and encouragement. So my father spent 2 years back in the years 1960 in a country called Ecuador. So growing up, it was very normal for us to consider other countries in our home. We talk about my father's fun experiences while he lived abroad, and his hardships also. So as I got older, I was looking forward to these opportunities, to have the same opportunities to travel and to understand the world. So after when I was in high school, I was able to do some volunteer trips with my church to go work in a very poor country called Honduras. It's
Mm-hmm.
pronounced Honduras in Central America. I did that for 2 summers, and it was a great experience for me. I felt like I was growing so much from the challenges. So after working 2 summers, actually, a few weeks at a time, and then I got into university, and I thought, oh, how else can I travel? So, but at that same time, I was working on my career development. So when I was in the university, I was studying political science, public
Mm-hmm.
administration. I was studying how to run a government. And so that was my dream, was to be involved in politics and to work in Washington, D.C. So after or during university, I did 2 internships, one in my local government, and then actually I had an internship in high school too. And then in university, I was able to work in Washington, D.C. And after that, I got involved in marketing. I worked for PepsiCo, Starbucks
Yeah.
coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started working with associations, private associations. And so my world kept expanding and expanding. And then I finally returned to Washington, D.C., and I worked on Capitol Hill for some senators. And then I stepped back into the private industry and I worked as a lobbyist for the electronics industry. So during that time, I was working with international representatives from electronic associations around the world, specifically, well, all of them actually. But one thing that happened was my boss was responsible for being the secretariat, the head of the International Association. So he was responsible for setting up their yearly conference. And so the first year it was in Beijing, and I hoped that I could go, but I wasn't invited. I was too low on the totem pole for being included on the trip to Beijing. But I was always communicating with my Beijing counterpart to prepare this conference for the World Electronics Forum. And then the next year they worked in Brazil, and I also was not allowed to go to Brazil. But my company was very influential. So what happened after that was I was really looking forward to if I could take the trip to Beijing. And so I made some friends online. One of them was one of my brother's classmates. He moved to Beijing, and then I made another friend who's a Beijinger from Beijing. And so I took a trip out to Beijing and I explored and for 10 days, and that was exciting. I have always had classmates who are of Asian origin. So I had a friend from Vietnam that I grew up with. So it's just normal for me to see people from Asia because of my friend from school. So, but during my time in Washington, D.C., I was always encountering other folks from the world. I was able to go abroad to Europe for the first time when I lived in Washington. I traveled to many countries in Europe and Russia. And after visiting Beijing, I thought, what a great opportunity. I'd love to understand Asia more. There's a big difference between the American Asians and Asians who live in Asia, because Asians who've moved to America have become Americanized. So it's a complete, not a complete difference. It's just, there's a difference, a significant difference. And so I decided that I wanted to leave my job that I was very successful at in a startup company. And I thought I would really be excited every day to wake up living in another country. I thought that would be very interesting, similar to my father's experience of living abroad for 2 years. So I considered where could I live. I had contacts at the American Embassy in Moscow, and but that didn't work out because I'm not fluent in Russian, and I'm not a U.S. Marine, so I couldn't get that job. And so I looked around, where else could I possibly live abroad? And so I took the shortest route. The shortest route was become a teacher of English. And there's so many opportunities for people who want to work abroad as an English teacher, but the pay is insignificant, not important at all. But money wasn't the motivation. It was to learn, to grow. And so I looked at, I talked to another friend of mine that I grew up with who was also teaching English in China. And I considered Japan, and then I also considered Korea. So out of the three, I decided to go with Korea, and I ended up in Korea, and I was there for 10 years. And the reason why is because it's kind of like golden handcuffs. The golden handcuffs are, it's such a great experience. You don't feel trapped, but you don't feel like you want to leave. I ended up living in a city called Busan, the second most populated city in Korea. And I was able to have an apartment that looked right at the ocean. And it was great. I had lots of foreigners that I could communicate with always. And I didn't have any trouble with the language because of apps. And many Koreans can speak English. And so I learned survival Korean, how to speak Korean just a little bit. And so it was no trouble to live in Korea. And actually it became quite easy. They have so many delivery services. Food gets delivered to your house. Anything you want on the internet can be delivered to your house. And so my life was fantastic. But it became a little too easy. And I felt like I really wasn't growing anymore. So during my time in Korea, I was able to go to other countries on my vacation time. And one summer, maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I took a trip to go visit 5 different countries in 1 week, 10 days. So I chose to go to first Mongolia, and second to, I think I went to Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, Cambodia, and Hong Kong was the last one. But I've been to Hong Kong before. I have some good friends that live in Hong Kong. And I originally had the idea of Mongolia because I had met some Mongolians in Korea, and very nice people. We had great time eating Korean barbecue together, and I thought this could be an interesting thing. So on Facebook, I happened to meet a Mongolian who said, "Hey, if you want to come to Mongolia, I'm happy to show you around." So I said, "Okay, well, I've got 2 nights, 3 days before I go to my next country. I'll stop by Mongolia and understand a country that I haven't visited before, or try to understand." So that's what I did. I came, we went to the Genghis Khan statue complex near Terelj. We went to Gangnam,
Gangdam,
Gangnam,
yes.
monastery.
Main temple, yes.
Yes. And some places around UB. And it was a really interesting intersection for me. And by intersection, I'm talking about Asian culture and Russian culture. So Mongolia sits right in the middle of 2 cultures. And now there's a third culture that's worked its way in, and that's the Korean culture. So my having lived in Korea for, at that time, it was 8 years I had lived in Korea. So I become very familiar with Korean foods, and more so that it becomes like comfort food. I love dak galbi, and I love samgyeopsal, but dak galbi is one of my favorites, and bosam are my 2 favorite Korean foods. So as as more time went on and I realized, I think I'm satisfied with my life in Korea, I'm ready for a change, I said, well, what place is the most interesting to me with the most comfortable weather as far as summertime goes? I did visit Mongolia during the winter also before I came. So I was familiar how cold it could become. Yeah. So as I came, I decided leave Korea. I packed up all of my apartment and shipped it in a shipping container. And as an American, it doesn't feel expensive to ship your whole apartment. For some people, they might consider it's expensive, but I figured my idea was, if I come to Mongolia, I don't want to spend a lot of time looking for things that I need. I would rather just have everything that I need. So I just packed up my apartment, my dresser, my TV, my bed, lots of boxes of things that I'd collected for 10 years, and sent them over here. And then later I needed to buy a sofa. So I went to, and a desk. So I went to Michel Expo and was able to find them there. But yeah, so now I've lived in Mongolia for, I think I'm on my 2-year anniversary now. At the end of May was when I came. So first I came for an interview, and then I went back to Korea for a few weeks, and then I went to America and visited my family. So the last time that I visited my family was before I moved here. So I haven't seen my family for 2 years. So this is one of the problems, but we'll talk about that later. So ultimately, I'm here now I'm in the city of Ulaanbaatar in the province of Ofs. Out my window here, I can see Ofs Lake. I've been to Ofs Lake. I was there 2 weeks ago with my friends, and we had a nice time, a little celebration on the shore, looking at the icebergs in the middle of the lake. And yeah, so I'm very lucky. So what happened was, I first came, I was recruited by a school. I came to Ulaanbaatar. I lived in Ulaanbaatar for working with this private school in 11 district. And then after that, I was able to well, kind of recruited. I went to another job working as the principal of a private school. And then at the end of the summer, I was recruited by another group that was building a brand new school over in the far part of Western Mongolia. So I had met a guy who had asked me to help with a training center and to help with a private business doing some training at their job location. So he became a good friend of mine, and he said, hey, Tim, do you know of any teachers that would be interested moving to the far west of Mongolia? And I said, well, honestly, in Mongolia, foreigners really don't get to know each other other than on Facebook groups. We don't see each other often. It's very strange. This is a very different the Mongolian expat foreigners community is very different from other foreign
I think so. Yes,
communities.
yes.
Yeah. A lot of folks have lived here for a long time, but they came as part of the mining industry or NGOs or something. But there's a very big difference, but in my experience, of foreigners who live in Mongolia versus foreigners who live elsewhere. I would say, I don't want to say anything bad, but I would say in in Korea, foreigners are much more friendly. They're much more interested to meet new people. I don't have that same experience here. I have met a few people, and I'm grateful for those foreigners that I met. They were very good people. One from England, another one from America, another one from France, two from France, another one from Canada. And so I've been very lucky. The foreigners that I meet face to face in Mongolia, very nice people, but online, they're not very friendly, very aggressive actually. So, but each to his own. Everybody has their own personality, and that's the same everywhere. Yeah. So I was recruited to come here by the friend who I had worked with in UB. He said, do you know anybody? I said, I don't really know anybody who's interested in moving to far Western Mongolia. And I certainly was not interested. And then they kept pushing. They said, hey, can you help us do some promotion for our new school? Because this will be the very first private school, that's not a kindergarten in this province. And so I said, sure, I'll do some promo work for you, and non-paid, just volunteer. And so they said, hey, can you come to a meeting? And I said, a meeting? What do you want to talk about? They said, we want to talk about textbooks. You would know about what books might be good for our school. I said, okay, well, I'm sure to meet you. No problem. I'll meet you at a Tom and Tom's in the 3-4 district. And so then next they're like, so you should come teach at our school. I said, me? I said, I don't know much about your province. So I said, okay, how about this? This was in August of 2019, end of July, beginning of August. I said to them, how about this? I would like to see your province. If you would help me travel to the province, then I'd be happy to see it. And then I can consider and at least give consultation to anyone who is asking, and they'd say, hey, Tim, what do you think about this? I'd say, well, okay, I will have an informed opinion. So I traveled out there. I said, well, how can we go? They said, there's 3 ways. And I said, is there a train? And I said, no, there's no train that comes here. I said, the options are, we can drive, you can take a bus ride. I said, okay, well, how long is the bus ride? They said 24 hours. Whew, that's not exciting. I've taken a bus ride to Hofschool before, and that was difficult. Now, I can travel for many hours as you fly from Asia to America. It's a 17-hour flight from either Beijing or Tokyo back to Chicago. So long distance is not the trouble. It's being in a bus for a long period of time, and the bus only stops a little bit. So anyway, I said, no, the bus option is not good for me. And they said, well, you could take a car, but we don't know anybody who's driving. I said, and how about airplanes? Okay, we have an airplane that flies out there. I said, okay, sounds good. So I took a 2-hour flight. Yeah, it was the first time it was 2 hours. Yeah. From Ulaanbaatar out to Ulaanbaatar airport. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we have a nice airport and yeah, it's so they showed me around, and what's really amazing, what really captured my attention, why I would want to be here, is they have 3 lakes here. The most famous is Ofs Lake, which is not as famous, but is actually bigger. Ofs Lake is bigger than Hofskol as far as the surface area, but Hofskol is deeper and has more water content.
Yeah.
And the difference between Ofs and Hofskol is that Hofskol is fresh water that can be drank, and Ofs is salt water. So, and it's very protected. You cannot, from what I understand, I was told, you cannot have a boat on Ofs Lake. But there's also 2 other lakes. There is a freshwater lake called Ureg Lake. And that one is very interesting, as the sediment is coming off of the mountains and it's getting pushed and falls into the lake. So it's freshwater. I believe there's a spring in it. It's good for fishing, but it's a little dangerous because there's like a cliff, and the cliff falls, and then as water comes or snow comes off the mountain, it's pushing. And the thing, it's just like an iceberg piece falls into the ocean. Wow. This piece of land just falls, and it's like, I don't know how many meters, but 4 times as tall as I am is this piece. And so it's dangerous. You can't walk on the edge. You can walk on the shore, but not on the edge, because it's possible to fall in. So that was a very difficult drive to get out there. Very, very bumpy. There's no safe road. You really need like a Toyota,
yes,
big,
I can imagine
big Toyota
that.
trucks. Yeah, you could take a Russian van, but it's bumpy to get out there to Ureg Lake.
And for 24 hours, no.
Well, yeah, for 24 hours, that's just to Ureg Lake. That takes about 2.5, 3 hours, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And then the third thing is the gem. The gem, the beautiful, most beautiful thing about Ofs province is Khyargas Lake. Khyargas Lake it's also a saltwater lake. At one time, my understanding is Ofs Lake and Khyargas Lake were together, but over time, it's locked, and there's no fresh spring bringing new water. So as the water evaporates, what's left is the salt. So it's a landlocked sea, and it's prehistoric. So it's been here for so long that as the regular water has evaporated, more rainwater comes in, yes, but it's very salty. So Khyargas Lake, there's different parts of it that look just like the Mediterranean. It's very green against salt that's built up on rocks. It's so amazing and so beautiful. So I said, okay, because I like Khyargas Lake, I will be happy to move to this province. So, and at that time also, we had been in lockdown in UB, and so it felt more free, more fresh air, and it's exciting to be involved and participate and support a new school that's opening. So the school was ambitious and wanted to have teachers that offer world-class education. So most of the teachers come directly from the university that's located next to the school. And so they're very experienced teachers, and myself included. I'm trained as an EFL, ESL teacher, English as a foreign language, or English as a second language, ESL, EFL. And I've been doing this now, I've completed 12 years of teaching. So I'm one of the veterans too. Even though at my university, I studied politics and government, and that's my experience, was being involved in government and startup companies and nonprofit companies and online retail businesses. So I have a lot of experience that I'm able to help these students to have their expectations expand. I hope I can open up their minds.
Sure.
And
is your school is founded by Mongolians?
Yes.
It's very interesting to
The
know that they're trying to bring up this level, this kind of private school in the far,
hmm,
far west of Mongolia. It's very, very nice, very good to know.
yeah, there's a university, a polytechnic university that's
Mm-hmm.
located in Ovs and in Ulaanbaatar, and the head of the school, he would send his family to go study in Japan. So
Mm-hmm.
his oldest son, he has an older daughter, but his oldest son um, decided that he wanted to help support the students of Ulaanbaatar to have the similar education foundation that he had under a Japanese structure. So this man, he goes back and forth between Japan and Mongolia as an importer. He buys different things and loads them up and sends them back here, then opens up the shipping containers and sells. And he also has so his business was import, yeah, not export, import, and what's the other one? Construction. So
Mm-hmm.
he has a construction company here in Ulaanbaatar and one in Ulaanbaatar.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he's spending all of his money to build a school. He's not rich in any stretch of the imagination, but similar to many schools that are in UB, they they're developed through the generosity of the Japanese people.
Mm-hmm.
For example, another school that I was working with in UB is called Shin Mongol, or now they changed the name. Shin Mongol is located near Hard Rock Cafe. So the original Shin Mongol was founded by a Mongolian who studied in Japan.
Ah,
And
yes.
then he asked his neighbors in Japan, hey, I'm interested in building a school in Mongolia. Would you donate some money? So that school has celebrated last year their 20th anniversary, and they were founded through the generosity of Japanese donations. And then I am familiar that there's a number of schools with yellow bricks all throughout
Mm-hmm.
UB that
Mm-hmm.
were built through donations from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very interesting aspect. I've traveled to Japan 5
Mm-hmm.
times.
Mm-hmm.
I like Japan. I like Korea. And so it's interesting to have all these connections for me from my previous travels here in Mongolia. I
Yes.
wouldn't say all roads lead to Mongolia. I just say that there's connections everywhere, so many connections. And so I don't feel so um, taken away. I don't feel like I'm taken out of my country. One of the things that helps me feel comfortable is I'm always looking for the connection. How are these
Mm-hmm.
things connected?
Mm-hmm.
Now here in Ulf's province, we're located almost, well, actually, I can see the Russian mountains out my window
Mm-hmm.
right over here. I can see the
Wow.
Russian border. And so we're in the far northwest corner of Mongolia, and it's a border city. But
Mm-hmm.
because of these coronavirus government mandated lockdowns, the border has been closed and the economy here has really suffered. Many people had built their careers, their family stability on being able to sell things to visiting Russians or
Mm-hmm.
to bring in even. So what's happened is this city is Mongolians go to China, bring things to Ofs, sell things to Russians who are coming trying to buy Chinese goods
Mm-hmm.
without having to go to China. So it's the economic um, strength of this city is being an international city, selling things, buying things, and so that's been very difficult here
Mm-hmm.
during this time. But
I see.
please, what else would you like me to talk about?
Well, actually, I had very few questions, and actually, you covered them all of them. And it truly is a quite long story, but it's very fascinating to hear about it. So, actually, it was very interesting to know that you lived in Korea for like 10 years, and there is the biggest Mongolian community outside of Mongolia in Korea, and like there is a very, very big community. My younger sister also studies in Korea,
Oh,
and yeah, she lives in Seoul. So it was very interesting. And as coming to Mongolia, it seemed like kind of, it was the soul searching journey for you, like after traveling all these Asian countries and you are now here. So I think it was quite easy for you to find those Korean comfort foods here, because there are
Yes.
a lot of Korean restaurants here.
Yes, yes. So if I could give some recommendations, anybody who loves Korean food, my two top Korean restaurant recommendations are for my two favorite foods. Everybody likes samgyeopsal, sure.
Yep, yep.
But there's other, and it's a social food. You're cooking together usually. Actually, I'll give three recommendations. For overall authentic Korean taste, there's a place called Hankuk 25 and 64, two different restaurants. One is in 11 district near Chinggis E-Mart. That's Hankuk 64, and Hankuk 25 is near or beyond Ramada, traveling out on Peace. So just as general food, general Korean food, they have a very authentic taste. But one thing that I was always searching for, and I went to every Korean restaurant in UB, is looking for the best dak galbi. Dak galbi is pan sauteed chicken and vegetables in gochujang spicy red pepper sauce, but it has to be like a thick paste. Unfortunately, many of the people here cook it not exactly as Koreans would. I understand they want to appeal to Mongolian tastes, so it's a bit watery. So I traveled all around five different restaurants, but I found a new restaurant, one that keeps changing its idea, and it's at the end. If you go from Sukbatar Square over Peace Bridge, on the right side, across from what's that place? Einstein or Picasso English School. Other side of the road is called Cheese Dak Galbi. I think that is a fantastic restaurant for people who want authentic dak galbi Korean taste. Cheese Dak Galbi is the restaurant name in English. Cheese Dak Galbi. And the other place that I like is for bosam. Bosam is a steamed pork belly, and you put it as a sam with a lettuce and then a garlic. And the best place for eating that, in my experience, has been at the Korean restaurant in Blue Sky Hotel. So if anybody really likes Korean food, those are my top choices. But I also love desserts. So I like to go to all restaurants and try and find desserts. And in my experience, what I prefer, what I enjoy, my number one favorite dessert is at the Chosan Temple restaurant near Shangri-La and the Chojin Temple. And they have a pumpkin cheesecake. Oh, it is incredible. When I'm not joking, I close my eyes. Yes, I close my eyes when I eat it. It is so good. I feel like I'm in someplace else. It's really weird. I never do that. So this tells you how remarkable this pumpkin cheesecake is.
Pumpkin cheesecake,
and then, yeah, but they have two great desserts. The second one is the first one, my number one dessert is pumpkin cheesecake. The second one is at a Japanese bakery, Sakura.
Oh yeah, they have very great. I love their crepe.
I haven't had their crepe. My number one dessert there is it's called the rare cheesecake. Rare cheesecake. So it's very fluffy. It's a fluffy cheesecake, and that is my second favorite dessert. My third favorite dessert is back at Chojin, and it is the creme brulee. They have a creme brulee that's in a very skinny.
Yes. I have
that one
tried
is
it
so
before.
good.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to go all the way across UB to find something delicious and to find connections with flavors that remind me of other places. I like to be in Mongolia. I like to understand, but sometimes I need a little break time where I can feel a connection to a place that I've been. And so food has been able to do that for me. Yeah, but there's another place that I'd recommend to anybody. It's called, it's a sandwich shop near Novotel Hotel, and it's called Rillos, R-I-L-L-O.
Reels, I never heard
R-I-L-L-O-S.
it before.
Rillos is a sandwich company that's like Subway sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
If you're familiar with Subway, so it's a long bun with sliced meat and vegetable toppings, and then they put it in the oven with cheese, and the cheese melts, and then they put the vegetable topping.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorite style is getting the signature sandwich, which is called the Amarillo,
Mm-hmm.
and I get it double baked. They
Mm-hmm.
put it in for 15 seconds. I say, do it again, and then it's
Wow.
really crispy, and really that's like my go-to thing. So
Mm-hmm.
now that I've been here out in the province for 6 months now, maybe more.
6 months.
I've been here longer, since so what is it, 6, 7 months. Next time I come back to UB, that's I'm going to go to Rillos, I'm going to go to Cheese Galbi, I'm going to go to Trojan Temple, because unfortunately in this small city there's only 3 restaurants that are actual restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
There's some small places that have hoshur and boz,
Mm-hmm.
but if you want a real restaurant, there's 3, but I prefer just one that has a nice pizza and a steak. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
lucky. I have some really good friends here whose mothers send me food. They're like, you should try this booze. So
Mm-hmm.
I know I steam booze at my house, and I haven't made it yet, rolled it and stuffed
Mm-hmm.
it. I know how to do it. I just don't do it yet. Yeah. So food is a connection for me. Culture is a connection. The people here in Ulfs are a little different from the people in UB. However,
Yes,
uh,
I'd like to hear about that. Yeah.
yeah. So, but one of the strangest coincidences are that before I moved to Oz, I didn't know anything about Oz, but then when I got here, a lot of friends that I've made over the years said to me, "Oh, you're in my hometown." I said, "What?" People that I met in Mongolians in Korea said, "Oh yeah, Ulfs is my hometown." Huh? And then, other friends in UB, like, "Oh yeah, I'm from Ulfs. I'm from Ulfs. I'm from what? How I don't, it's an amazing connection.
Uh-huh.
All these
Uh-huh.
people are from Ulfs. And but I understand that Ulfs is most famous for its wrestlers. And
Yes.
actually,
Mm-hmm.
the apartment that I have here is your national champion this past year. This is his parents' apartment. So they moved to UB for the winter time, and so the school needed an apartment. So I was
Mm-hmm.
able to move into their apartment.
Mm-hmm.
But next week they're coming back, so I need to
Mm-hmm.
pack up and move to a new apartment. But it's a small town, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only foreigner in this city. Because there was Peace Corps volunteers who lived here, but last spring when the lockdowns first started, America recalled them. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no more foreigners here.
Oh,
Um,
so mhm.
yeah, but
uh,
there's yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to ask about if there is other foreigners in your town. So there's no one else actually.
Now
Oh, I see.
I'm the lone foreigner, but that was my first experience in Korea. I was put at a public school. There were 1,400 students, maybe 50 teachers. And I was the only foreigner, and I didn't know anybody when I first moved to Korea. So after about a month, I was able to find some other foreigners. But for the first week, I was a bit intimidated. I was jet lagged in Korea, and I didn't know where I was, and I had to figure out on Google Maps, where am I?
Mm-hmm.
So I've had the experience before of being the only foreigner, or the only person with no connection to myself. So as I moved here, I only had my friends from school, or they're not friends, colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
I had colleagues from school. They all have their own thing. But I do have a dog. So when I was in UB, I thought I would like to have a dog. So on Facebook, there's some different groups of people talking about dogs, and so people were saying they're looking for someone to take their dog from them. And in
Mm-hmm.
my particular case, there's a golden retriever that was owned by a family who mostly was taken care of by a woman who had had one baby, and the baby was growing up, and then she became pregnant for her second baby. This
Mm-hmm.
particular dog is a bit strong, and so it's difficult for a new mother having one toddler and one infant and a dog, because this dog is very strong and not very well behaved. So I didn't know this at the time, but so I decided I would, so I said, yes, I would love to take your dog, because they said that they couldn't handle the dog anymore. So I've had my dog for a year and a half now. So now she's 7. She's right here on the floor underneath me. She likes to be she likes to be next to me. She's behind the curtain where the door is open and it's cool. And so that's, that's some stability, is having a dog. So I walk around the dog. I'm the only person who has a dog as a pet. Other people have dogs as security guards. But from my understanding, a month before I moved here, they put in the first gnomon. So that was lucky. I was lucky that they have a gnomon here, and they had some dog food, and and so I was concerned before I moved if there was any dog food. How can I get dog food? I don't give my dog animal food. I give it dog food. So I had dog food delivered with all of my things in the shipping container out here. And then when I went to Noman, oh, they have dog food. So then I was like, oh, I buy it. And then people could see I'm the only foreigner in Noman that they ever see. And then I was the only person buying dog food. So I said, hey, are you guys going to have this dog food for a while? And they said, well, you're the only person who buys it. So I said, oh, okay. So I'm the only person in the city that has a dog as a pet. And I walk my dog out on the streets. So as I was walking my dog, there's a nice plaza in front of the governor's office building. So the main city square is the Governor of Ulf's province plaza. So I walked my dog, I sat down, I was just getting some sun, making myself available. People could see me, and the children would come up and want to pet the dog, and then I could hear who could speak English or not. And then some of my students might be passing by and say hello to them. And then some adults approached me. Then they said, oh, are you the new teacher in the city? I said, yes. And they said, oh, we're so happy that you're here. We have lived abroad. We have lived in UB, and we wanted, and all of them had the same story. They all had lived abroad or had lived in UB for a significant amount of time, had a career, and then felt they desire to move back and to give back and to be included in their hometown. So this is a theme that is reoccurring. More people are who are from this city are looking for ways to reinvest in this city with their time, with their money. In the case of the founder of the school that I work with, he wanted to give back by building a school. Other people, there's a teacher here who used to work at Ochron and UB, and now she has started her own training center and has been quite successful. She says she's exhausted with so much work. So many people want to study with her. And then at the time that I first moved here, the governor's assistant had been studying in China, and she wanted to come back, and she became the governor's assistant. So, and then there's another guy who had worked with the OT mining and had lived in UB for a number of years, and then wanted to be involved and started working for the governor here. So, these have become my best friends here. Folks who speak English well, who they aren't asking me for anything. They just want to participate with me. They invite me along on their trips to the lakes. We have dinner together, and I'm so lucky that I found some really great people who have sincere hearts that are trying to give back. And so this has happened more and more. I am in contact with someone who moved to France, who's from Ulaanbaatar, and they have an initiative that they created on Facebook and are doing remotely promoting Ulf's to promote it as a green city. Wow. So in this regard, green city to them means adapting the city by planting lots of trees and focusing on the ecological health of the community, and also by giving vision for what could be possible if people made an effort. In this particular city, there are 3 collections of trees, maybe more. At least that I can see 2 out my window. These ones are situated near streams where they get a lot of water. This is the problem. with most of Mongolia, with the exception of Turelj and Hofskol, is that water is scarce. It's not easy to get a lot of water. And so trees need water for growing. And you have a lot of desertification that takes place. As the trees have been cut, people wanted building supplies or burning it for wood. Very reasonable things. The problem was it was over forested. It was over cut. The trees were cut down too much. And so when you have deforestation and desertification, you start to have so much erosion. And so this is a problem. And as you have erosion and deforestation, you also, the landscape, the environment is not going to hold on to the water as much. And so, but one of the amazing things about Ulaanbaatar is that the cows walk through the city. The cows just walk through the city, walk through the city square. So you have to kind of avoid walking on their poop. They just poop. And so, but this is a fantastic natural resource. Some of the families in the gers on the outsides of the city, they collect it and they use it for fuel, for cooking, for heating the home instead of black coal. But also it can be used, and it should be used as part of the Green Gom initiative. It's not an NGO. It's just a Facebook group, and people are talking, putting up ideas, planting trees. We just had this last week. We had so many trees be planted. I would think a couple hundred trees were planted. And so, but what also needs to happen is nutrients need to be provided for these new plants. Yeah, you can dig a hole, you can put a sapling in it that's been growing for a couple of years, but it's also going to need nutrients that come from black soil or compost. It doesn't come from sand. Sand has no nutrient in it. So one of the things that I initiated at my school last year, before I came, I said, yes, I like Ulaanbaatar, and I would like to encourage the students about learning about like ecology and horticulture. How do plants grow? What are the parts of a plant? And not just plants, but vegetables. It's important that children understand how to grow food. Very few people are connected spiritually, emotionally, economically to the food that they eat. In Korea, that was one of the things that was so amazing, was all the grandmas would just plant wherever they could, some onions, some anything, just, on a little strip of land in between two houses. And it's public property, but people are planting. And I understand, they had a war there 60 years ago, that food was very scarce. And so they understand the importance of always being prepared for food security. Personal food security is so important, but most people don't take it into consideration. Now, I started, where did I first do that? Did I do it in Korea or here? No, it was in Mongolia. I studied on how to help students with the reuse, recycle, renew plastic bottles. So you can take a plastic bottle, you can cut it in half, turn it upside down. You can grow a plant with this as a water reservoir, and then you cut a hole in the top. As this is turned upside down, water gets sucked up and plants grow. So that's a way for teaching children how to be excited about things growing. And so I said, one of my ideas was I want to have a greenhouse. And so that's a future plan for the school, is to build a greenhouse as the school is expanding. And so it connects in with this Green Gom idea of not just having trees and grass because they produce oxygen and eat carbon dioxide, but they also are good for the environment. I'm not too worried about climate change. I think it's been blown out of the water. In fact, I think Mongolia would benefit from climate change. It's too cold in the winter here.
That's right.
So I'm not very worried about climate change, but I do think that people should take responsibility for being good stewards and responsible for the land. It's not my land. It's not, yes, we can own private property, but you're a steward for a period of time, and then the next person owns it. So we should do our best, just like cleaning up our bedrooms, cleaning up our house, clean up your environment that you live in.
I totally agree with you. Yep.
Protect it for the next person. And in addition to the trees and the grass that is possible to grow, which makes you feel good, the more that you're in nature, humans were not created to live in boxes and houses. Yes, we sleep there, but we also need to go outside. And that's one of the beautiful things about Mongolian culture, is the connection with the environment, and, you know, the shoes with the toes that go up so they didn't scratch the earth. Yeah, that's the old tradition. These days, everybody takes their Toyota trucks and drives everywhere, and the ground is all torn up. So I don't believe people really practice that. But the original idea is a nice one, protecting the environment. So what happens next is, I would like to see greenhouses built, and there's an NGO here, based in UB, but they're a French NGO called Geres, Geres, and they promote training people and for food security and building 3-season greenhouses. So, but in America, we've been working on this next to Canada, and I live in the northern part of America. It gets cold too, not as cold as here, but cold for several months. You can build 4-season greenhouses. In Canada, there's a greenhouse that grows oranges and kiwis. It took a long time for the tree to grow, but it's possible. Avocados can be grown in a greenhouse in a very cold climate. So, and with new technologies, not necessarily technology, but best practices, you can reduce the amount of water needed to grow things. For example, hydroponics or aeroponics. These are systems where it's a closed system where the water circulates, and you don't need, it's not necessarily for soil, but you can introduce fish, and the fish eat the root or the nutrient. They have poop, and then it goes and circulates to your vegetables. So there's a cycle system that works. There's also vertical greenhouses where you put water at the top, and what isn't needed for one trickles down to the bottom one. And so I have some friends in UB working on that project. So the tech, it's not that it needs to be high tech, it can be low tech, and you just have to do best practices and use science. It's just science and understanding things that you might not have been familiar with, because the ultimate thing is, well, second ultimate thing, the first ultimate thing is have trees and plants that create oxygen. That's the ultimate. The second thing is food security. My particular city, there's lots of sheep herders here. We also have camels here. But 90 to, I don't know, if I had to guess, 92%, between 90 and 95% of all food that's eaten here is imported. And we've had situations where there weren't any eggs for weeks, same as UB. But why don't we have eggs here? Because there's no chicken farmer. So that's a project that I'm partnering with somebody on. We're going to do chicken egg farming. But we have sheep. So if there's ever an apocalypse and food doesn't grow anymore, well, we can eat sheep for a while. We have so many sheep here. And there's different spin-off businesses from sheep, and there's tourism here, but food security is very important. And I would like to encourage people and help people and support people to build greenhouses, 3-4 season greenhouses, to extend the growing period. The most important thing for growing vegetables in the winter is sunlight. So you probably have to create fluorescent lighting, just like, you know, people have grow lights. A grow light can help you grow in the wintertime, but it's still growing. So I have a couple of plants behind my window here. I like to grow things too. And actually I brought these from UB with me. But in the future, I hope we can have more food security. We can grow some more of our food, besides just eating meat, which is great, but I need vegetables too. There's a couple of projects I'm considering working on.
What you have mentioned is absolutely very, very significant issues here in Mongolia. Planting our food ourselves, and also just having more green places and green areas also here in Ulaanbaatar. So I actually appreciate you a lot for like appealing yourself to your community and starting it with yourself, and like being the leader of your community. I'm also learning to grow like things. I'm starting from the plants, house plants. So that's very nice. And actually listening to how your friends are giving back to their own hometown and helping their own hometown, it's quite different from what I had heard from other people. Like, for example, for maybe it's kind of like a off specific maybe examples, because for most of the time when people are willing to give back to their community, they just, you know, like sponsor some horse racing, racing prizes, and like build some statues, etc. So listening
Mm-hmm.
to those like practical examples how they're giving back, it's so different. Actually, it's very promising. It's,
I
yeah.
understand that there's a different relationship of UB versus the people from OFS, and that how some people have not looked especially well at people from OFS because they
Exactly.
speak a
Yeah.
little different, or they're different from us. Similar to in Korea, the people who live in the far western side of Korea have been always treated differently, because the original situation was that there were three kingdoms in Korea,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
the two kingdoms kind of merged, and the other one was the odd man out. And so there was always, I can't remember the name of that city, but it's the near Jala something.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I'm familiar, and it's the same geographic situation where people are from a different area, but Mongolia really has benefited tremendously from the people of Ulfs in UB.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best developers of apartment buildings and construction are from
Mm-hmm.
UB. These
Mm-hmm.
people are very hardworking, very
Mm-hmm.
dedicated,
Mm-hmm.
and not necessarily interested in high fashion. They're interested in results. They will invest themselves for a better future, not for themselves always. Uh, Actually, you have a better future for yourself when you invest in the future of others and your
Mm-hmm.
children. So the apartment next to me, the guy who
Mm-hmm.
you can't see it, on the other
Yeah.
side of this computer is a wall.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
the other, they tell me he's the wealthiest man in Ulaanbaatar,
Uh-huh.
and he has an import export meat business and a resort business. But I got to tell you, this guy is also one of the most generous man I have ever met. He comes over, he offers me lots of meat in
Mm-hmm.
during the lockdown. It was kind of depressing, and but they knock on my door. Hey, Tim, do you want a bag of meat? Oh, wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
They gave
Wow.
me so much meat and chicken, and I have a cow tongue in the freezer. I don't know how to cook this,
Oh,
but
you yes. If you cook it, it's so delicious.
and they gave me sea buckthorn.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt I love being generous. I'm certainly not in Mongolia to make money. I could make, 4, 5, 6 times in America if I wanted to. Not
Mm-hmm.
important. What's important is that I feel like I'm challenged, like I'm growing, and that I'm helping other people. And so, and as an EFL teacher, ESL teacher, teacher of English, you almost never see the result of the work that you do.
Mm-hmm.
So the philosophy of being a teacher of foreign languages is you're planting seeds.
Mm-hmm.
You plant a seed, you don't know if it's going to grow, but you plant a seed and you be satisfied with the knowledge and the peacefulness that you planted a seed. So as I spent 10 years in Korea, I probably will spend 10 years here in Mongolia, unless there's a forced vaccination thing that I want nothing to do with. I don't want
Yeah.
anything to do with vaccinations. So I could see myself being here 10 years. I've already been here 2. I feel invested in the community. I have great friends. I see projects that will take time to develop, and we're planting seeds, literally
Mm-hmm.
going to plant some seeds for growing trees. So I have an ambitious goal that I was trying to do this year, planting 100 seeds for each classroom. We have 5 classrooms this year, would have
Mm-hmm.
been 500 trees.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the lockdown, I don't even go to school. We just
Mm-hmm.
teach online. So next year, we're going to double. We're going to have 10 classrooms,
Mm-hmm.
and we have about 25 students per class. We're building a second building, should be finished by fall. We're also building a gymnasium. We're not we, it's the gentleman who founded the school, who's making
Mm-hmm.
money in Japan and reinvesting it here in Ulaanbaatar.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's also building I don't know, state-of-the-art gymnasium. So we're going to, and then the fourth project is the greenhouse. I wish he would have done the
Mm-hmm.
greenhouse first, but that's not going to happen. He needs the second building first. And so we're planting seeds. Seeds are going to grow into trees,
Sure.
and it's going to benefit, it's not necessarily going to benefit me immediately.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to benefit the future people. And so this is what legacy is. I do things as a legacy for the people who come after me, because people have done the same for me.
Mm-hmm.
People
Mm-hmm.
built a legacy that I benefit from. So I want to do the same and benefit the people who come after me. Yes, I treat people nice. People treat me nice. Some people haven't treated me nice. Some people take advantage, but this is the same in every country. I was
Mm-hmm.
taken advantage of in Korea. I also benefited in Korea. I was taken
That's true.
advantage in
That's true.
America.
Yeah.
I also benefit. So, there's a phrase that says, dance like no one's watching, sing like no one's listening. You have to do what is in your heart, and that's what gives your life some meaning and value. It's not always about doing it for yourself. It's about the legacy and planting of seeds. So I'm going to plant real seeds. I'm also planting seeds in the ideas
Mm-hmm.
and the hearts to help Ulaanbaatar children, as I did in UB already, planting seeds for expanding their minds, expanding what's possible, giving them a vision for a further horizon,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what people have done for me. And that's what makes me happy, is helping people, and just, as my father did. So
Mm-hmm.
as I told you at the very beginning, my
Yeah.
father volunteered for 2 years. He never has been back to that country, but he has great stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we know that he affected people's lives in a good way, even if you don't see the end result. But yeah, one thing I talk about with my students is about hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Difference between a job and a hobby. A job makes money for you. That's good. You always need a
Mm-hmm.
job. And then a hobby is something that makes your heart happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you could drink. I asked somebody, I asked some people, I said, what's your hobby? They said, drinking coffee with my friends. Is that a real
Uh-huh.
hobby? I don't know. Or going to the movie theater. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible, but I think a real hobby is where my hobby is cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Hobby is the opportunity for an expression of your spirit in an artistic way.
Exactly.
It,
Yeah.
it could be making music, being a cello player, violin
Mm-hmm.
player, piano player. It could be belly dancing. It's an expression from your heart outward.
Mm-hmm.
And mine is cooking. I like to cook. I
Mm-hmm.
have, 3 boxes of spices.
Mm-hmm.
People say, what? How do you have all these spices? I say, I just pick it up and I see something, I want to cook it. It's fun. For me, it makes my heart happy to cook. I do things that make my heart happy, and I do, I'm fine. I have enough money to feed myself, and I
Mm-hmm.
can visit my family, but money's not important. I've already had great jobs and great money in other cities. And did it make me the most happy? Yeah, I was happy at the time, but it's all short term. What's most happy is planting seeds. I really like
Mm-hmm.
planting seeds in other people's lives.
That's lovely. Actually, I think, yeah, it's very important to have those kind of hobby that you can express yourself. And actually, I wish I had a high school teacher like you that who would say those things to me, because after after I graduated, after I finished my high school, I studied for 4 years, and after studying for 4 years, I realized that this profession was not my profession, and
Ah,
never really had the time to really understand my true self, like what do I really want, what do I really want to become. So those kind of things need to be talked and um, taught in high school. So I think you're doing
mhm.
great, and that will definitely help those kids to
Yeah, I
understand themselves
always,
and, yeah, find their real life purpose. Yeah, at least,
yes,
yeah.
yes. That's what I try to inject into my students' thinking process.
Mm-hmm.
I always try to give them real life perspective. And I remember exactly when I was in high school. I
Mm-hmm.
remember my first memories are crawling on the floor. I remember, I don't know, many people don't, but I thought about it for a long time. And I remember myself when I learned how to walk. And I remember crawling, and I remember, people picking me up. I'm totally honest here. I totally remember crawling as a baby, and then people picking me up and try to make me walk, but I didn't want to walk because I thought it's too hard to walk. It takes too long. I'd rather crawl. I can get there faster if I crawl. So I have memories. I remember every school year. I remember my teachers. I remember my experience in high school. So I talk to my students and I say, I remember when I was your age. I remember what was interesting to me. So that helps me be more relatable and find connections so that they feel an emotional or intellectual connection as we're giving the information to them to try and open up their minds. So I know I'm a pretty good teacher. I don't look at myself as a teacher. I look at myself as a helper. Yes, I can teach. That's no problem. But I take more pride in feeling like I'm a helper to help people to grow. I have 25 nieces and nephews. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister, and they're all married in America. So our family, we get together. I don't know what the number. It's almost 50. So yes, I have. As I'm not living in America, there is an opportunity cost. It costs me not to live in America. It costs me to be away from my family. However, the cost is worth it to me. I go home every year almost. There's been a couple of years, took 2 years. This is 2 years. Maybe I can't go home until Christmas this year. So, but I have an opportunity cost. But I am an uncle. I'm an uncle 25 times over. So I like kids. I've always been happy to work with kids. And so in some ways, I'm an uncle to my students. So if I don't think of myself like a teacher, but I'm not necessarily an uncle, but I want to share with them so that they can grow their minds like an uncle would. And I tell them about, this is what's going to happen this year, and this is what's going to happen next year. And I always tell all of my classes, I say, I'm going to tell you a secret about life. Life was easier last year, and next year it's going to be harder. And each year after that, it's going to be harder. So don't ever think that life is going to be easier. It will always get harder. But the secret is you get stronger. You're going to grow stronger in your brain, in your body, in your heart. Every day you have that chance to grow stronger. So even though life gets harder, you are going to get stronger. These are the types of messages that I talk about when I'm teaching. In addition to the book. Yeah, you have to teach the book.
Yeah. I have never been to OFS actually, and I don't know if I ever go to OFS. Actually, it's, because of this long road trip, bus trip. But after hearing how you described Khyargas, I feel like I should go and see Khyargas. Definitely. And 3 lakes, those beautiful scenes. So thank you very much, Tim.
You're very welcome.
Please come
much. When you have a time.
Sure,
and anyone else, please come to OFS and fly in the airplane. It's 300,000 tug, Hunu Aero Mongolia, but it's really worth it. And we have lots of good tour guides here. And if somebody stops by and sees me, that's great too. But Khyargas Lake, let's help grow the Mongolian economy by supporting each other and planting seeds so that our children can have a better future.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. And it was my pleasure to talk to you.
It's also my pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm happy to talk to you today. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Good night. Thank you very much for listening. Please follow our channel on the podcast platform that you're using so that you won't miss the new episodes. And if you want to share your thoughts and ideas, don't hesitate to reach out on modernmongolians@gmail.com. Баярлалаа, баяртай.